My name is Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law. I write the Ask Sophie column for TechCrunch. I'm now a best-selling author, which is super exciting and funny to me, but we're going to go with it. I'm based in Palo Alto, started Alcorn Immigration Law 8 years ago. My dad was an immigration lawyer. My mom's from Germany, and I'm a certified specialist in immigration and nationality law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization. And I'm so excited to be joined by my expert, brilliant team of, I should not swear on this webinar, inspiring, amazing Velociraptor attorneys that I'm so honored and proud to have surrounded myself with here at Alcorn Immigration Law. So I'll let each of them introduce themselves and say a couple of words about themselves. So over to you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I'm excited to be here today. We have a lot of great things to cover. I'm Linda Haggerty. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here at Alcorn, and I've been practicing business immigration law for over 20 years. I'm the proud mother of 2 teenage daughters, and I really am excited about all the new developments that we're going to talk about today.
Very exciting. Thank you so much, Linda.
Sure.
And Corey.
Yeah, my name's Corey. I am an associate attorney here at Alcorn. I've been practicing immigration law for 7 years almost this next month. And proud mom of 2 daughters as well, but mine are babies. And yeah, I've been fascinated by immigration for a long time, come from like a really diverse family. So excited to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Corey. And the newest member of Alcorn Immigration Law, Lana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lana Spaich. I am a new member, so this is my first webinar.
Welcome to your first webinar.
Happy to be here. I do have over 16 years of experience practicing business immigration, and also a mom of 2 children, elementary age, and my parents came here as employment-based immigrants. Happy to be here with everyone.
Amazing. Yeah, welcome to the Alcorn Immigration Law team. And to everybody in our audience, if you are considering getting immigration help for a case and you choose to call Alcorn, you will have the opportunity to have a consultation with one of us for attorneys. So listen, feel free to ask your questions, get to know us. We are all kind of obsessed with immigration law for no rational reasons, except we love it. So we're all very passionate about helping our clients solve their problems. And we're also just so excited about all these immigration updates to share with you today. This is our team. We've grown a little bit lately. We're a remote, decentralized team of brilliant, passionate, really smart people. We're all across the United States, primarily based in California, Texas, Massachusetts, and North Carolina at this point. So the way we interact with our clients is primarily by Zoom, and we have a broad range of scheduling options depending on your time zone. So get to know us. We're happy to help. And I think what really brings us together is just our commitment that we see all of our clients as individual, unique human beings. Whether you work at or run a startup, or whether you need your own immigration, we realize that this is personal for you. And so we're excited to help you accomplish your immigration goals together. Okay, so breaking news, lots of immigration updates in the last couple of weeks. When we announced this webinar, it was solely based on the H-1B updates. But then there was this whole slew of AI updates as well that happened last week. So we have a lot to cover today. And although many of the aspects of all of this executive orders and regulations, a lot of it is tentative and proposed, there's some really key aspects that are already taking effect now that don't need to wait for any sort of notice and comment period or final rule. So that's the part that we're most excited to leverage now for our clients today. And we'll be diving in a lot to that because it's mostly about how people in big tech on H-1B, so aspiring founders primarily from India and China, can break away and start their new startups and have a lot more ownership and control and still maintain their H-1B status. So that's the thing we're really going to be chatting about, because, you know, that affects our clients today meaningfully. But there's a lot we're going to cover about the new streamlined application processes, how visas and green cards could get improved, how things are going to get better for J1 exchange visitors and F1 students. And there's a whole slew of changes that might also be coming to make America a more welcoming place for the brilliant minds creating artificial intelligence for us. So we've got a lot to cover, and I see the questions coming in, and we're gonna be answering them throughout. So if you know you have a question now would be a great time to add it into the Q&A panel, and I'll try to answer those as we can weave them in, and we'll also try to reserve some time at the end for more Q&A. But we'll keep this to an hour today. Okay. Oh, and I will answer one of these right now. Yeah, I mean, we're a full service immigration and nationality law business immigration law firm. So we help our clients from start to finish with US visas and green cards. We do H-1Bs, we do perms, we do O-1s, we do extraordinary ability, we do national interest waiver. So any business immigration tools that will help a startup founder or a potential hire for a rapidly scaling technology company or other types of professionals. If you need work permission to live and work and build something in the United States, that's what we do. And so we do everything related to USCIS, Department of Labor, Department of Homeland Security, Department of State, H-1B filing, founders. But I will say we don't offer corporate or IP legal services or family law services. So sometimes our clients need those things, and we'll make a referral to another provider that we trust. Okay. Thank you for the question. All right. So there's a lot going on. Linda, a super high level, like what's been happening and who might be affected?
Yeah, I mean, I think really our focus is two things that have happened in the last few weeks. I mean, the first thing is we have these new H-1B modernization proposed regulations that are in a 60-day comment period. And that's really going to try to modernize the H-1B program. And one of the big highlights we'll talk about today is it's going to kind of lift the barrier for co-founders to have majority ownership in their H-1B. It'll be solidified in the regulations. And then we had a surprise executive order come out following those new regs saying, basically, we're going to do whatever we can in our immigration system with visa processing, USCIS processing, visa issuance, whatever we can do to improve the process and streamline it for individuals working in AI and emerging technologies.
Yeah.
So two different things.
And Lana and Corey, why now? Why do you think the administration is choosing this particular time?
I didn't want to
Put you on the spot, cold calls like law school, except there's no right answer.
Honestly, I
can
literally just thought that too.
I can answer part of that question.
Yeah,
I think for sure in terms of the H-1B modernization rule, part of the reasoning is to clarify or create in a situation, especially for H-1B lottery, where it's fair for everyone to get a slot and to allow everyone to get a chance to get the H-1B. So they're creating some rules that'll make getting a lottery number fair for everyone. And then in terms of AI, I'll move that to Corey.
I mean, I think AI is very prevalent these days. The number of people I've spoken to in the last few weeks who are involved in AI is crazy, and I've learned a lot about it recently. So I think it's just a really hot topic and it's important.
Yeah. Linda, anything to add there?
Well, I mean, I think because AI is so rapidly evolving too, I think that we've got to get some controls on that. I think the US government realizes that this is going to be a big part of our day-to-day life and in terms of the government and companies. So establishing some structure to how we roll AI out is important. And we really need those highly skilled workers, which are foreign nationals, to help us to kind of build out that structure.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And this timing gives us kind of a chance to try to get these H-1B lottery reforms through before the next lottery. So fingers crossed, like these changes will be real and the lottery will be much more fair starting this March. So it's kind of like the last possible moment they can get this through with all the regulatory due process things. So that's one thing. And then another thing is there's going to be a presidential election in a year, and it's contentious, right? And there's like really big possible effects for immigrants depending on whichever way it goes, Republican, Democrat, Independent, who knows? But there are very different positions on immigration. So this administration is trying to secure its legacy, if they don't win re-election, to at least try to get some of these good things for immigrants cemented. So that's the political. So there's the regulatory, there's the political, and then there's the geopolitical. Both sides of the aisle in Washington see clearly that America needs to lead in artificial intelligence, and we want the next Google, Tesla, SpaceX to be built in the United States and not elsewhere. And so finally, people in Washington who care about national security are waking up to the fact that we can't just passively hope that we'll be such a magnet for international students who will stick around. They're realizing, you know, like if you listen to like the VCs on the All In podcast, they're like, why can't America cherry pick the world's best and brightest? Like, let's be a professional sports team and let's draft the best players. And so I think all of these changes are an attempt to be more intentional as a nation of how we recruit you, the brilliant people attending this webinar today, to actually feel welcome and to stay here. So it's exciting that people are waking up that we need to do that. Okay, so let's dive in to the H-1B proposed modernization rule. And let's start off with startup founders, because this is solid, this is real, this is now. Actually, they've been doing this for a long time, but we were all, well, a lot of I wanted to do something in this vein months ago, but it's scary to convince any one individual person to take a risk on their own case. But what we have now is official guidance that it's actually not risky. So I do see some questions in the Q&A panel. So in relation to this slide, we'll get to some of these H-1B for startup founders types of questions. But Linda, what is this new the guidance in the preamble? What does it say?
Yeah, I mean, so this was really like fascinating because we've always, as you said, Sophie, like been standing on the edge. Like, do we, you know, are these cases going to get approved if one of the co-founders has majority ownership? And we've always used the common law definition of employee-employer relationship. And we've always kind of laid out those 4 factors like hire, fire, control, supervise. And, you know, we've had a lot of meat in our petitions in that regard. And now the shift is saying that you don't have to prove that same, you don't have that same standard. You can be an owner and a co-founder of a company and have majority ownership and still be the H-1B beneficiary because the corporate organization is distinct. So this is a huge win. I mean, but the irony in of it, and we spoke about this a little bit, is the way it's written is it's like, well, we already adopt this, but now we're codifying it. It's like, no, that's not how you've been adjudicating the cases. So
okay, yeah, yes, right, okay. So, and yes, somebody's asking that we will be sharing this recording. Apparently it will include me dancing. So there we go, that's embarrassing. But I remember starting Alcorn immigration law in Mountain View in 2016. And I had this thesis that there must be a lot of people from around the world who wish they could be startup founders that are trapped in some hamster wheel of H-1B, whatever, ball and chained at big tech companies, and they wanted to be startup founders. And when I got my start as an immigration lawyer, and I was doing like a design thinking class and trying to figure out, you know, how I could add value and trying to believe that I could create a law firm after being a stay-at-home mom and not having a career identity or whatever. I was going around and I was interviewing different business immigration practitioners on how would you get an H-1B for an early stage startup. And nobody really knew, people weren't really doing it. People just believed you had to have a green card to have a startup. And it was really hard. And I had done a bunch of cases for like tech consulting IT companies that were doing staffing, and that was super contentious, but those had a lot of RFEs, requests for evidence, that would say, look, here's the definition of an employer-employee relationship. You have to show that somebody's hiring you for this job. They're going to supervise your work. They can decide when to promote you or when to fire you and discipline you. And you can't call the shots if you're going to be on an H-1B. And it was so clear in those like countless numbers of cases that we were working on. And so there was no guidance for startup founders at the time, but it just seemed obvious that the law needed to be implemented consistently. And therefore, okay, how could an H-1B holder navigate that? And so what we came up with and what seemed to be approvable was, all right, this is some pre-revenue company that maybe has an office, maybe not, like a big lot of cash landed in their bank account from some random investor. The government doesn't know if it's a real business. We have to, explain that this is a legitimate economic business model that's, the brightest minds are attracted to. And it's not some sham thing for immigration. So we had all these hurdles to get through, and just one of them happened to be, okay, how do you as a founder actually legitimately get an H-1B in this company? And based on the law at that time, it was, well, you should own less than half of the company, and there should be another person on the board that can choose to fire you, and you have to be outvoted. You have to be outvotable in your corporate structure. So we've had so many clients who had to prematurely sell shares or bring in like a business advisor or something to be on their board. And how do you choose that person wisely? And like, yes, if you're going to be, the next, well, I guess Mark Zuckerberg avoided this, but like so many founders of unicorn, decacorn, whatever startups, their equity dilutes so much, like maybe just down to a few percentage points, and they naturally give up control when they get like venture series A, and they have to bring in like a board seat for somebody from the VC fund. It's terrifying. And even though you know that you're going to have to do it one day, if you get that successful, you don't necessarily want to prematurely do that at the early stages when it's really like the founder's vision that carries the company through. But I will say Mark Zuckerberg did circumnavigate that by basically like getting all of the control back from the Facebook board ages ago. So there are workarounds if you're creative, but I'm just so excited because literally, like, I've been talking to Washington for years saying, my clients are afraid, how do we do this? How do we support them? How do we get H-1Bs? And they're like, well, you could just theoretically do it. I'm like, have you seen the RFEs your officers give our clients sometimes when they're willing to take a chance with us, right?
Yeah.
But really the bottom line is so here's just a fact pattern, and then I want to hear from Corey your thoughts, and then I want to hear from Lana your thoughts. But here's the bottom line. Let's say you work at Meta and you're on an H-1B and you're from India, and we don't know when your priority date is going to happen, and it's an EB-2, and you want to get an EB-1 one day, but you're not there yet. So you're just like waiting, getting H-1B renewals, and you want to be the CEO of some new AI startup that you imagine, and you want to be a solo founder, or you have one co-founder and you're doing like a 50-50 equity split. You can literally get an H-1B now. You do not have to dilute your own equity below 50%, and you don't have to find a third person or second person to join your board. You can get an H-1B if you own more than 50% of your company, and even if there's no board, and even if you don't have a co-founder, we could theoretically do it that way as well. So that's my rant, but I'm really excited about this. Because even 6 months ago, USCIS, and if you've been attending these webinars, you would have heard me say like, well, the website guidance changed and now we can do it with just an offer letter and an LCA, blah, blah, blah. But like, we don't know if it's going to work, right? But like now we literally know it's going to work. Like this is language that we could use to sue the government with if your case got denied. So that's really so Corey, what do you think?
About your fact pattern or
No,
the
just
changes.
in general. And what am I missing?
Well,
from the slide?
I
What else do we need to
I
touch
don't think
on?
you're missing anything. I think it's really exciting. I think that fact pattern you gave, I think I've talked to some people who like truly fit that entire profile like the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I think this will be a really great change for many people who feel very stuck in their position and they really don't want to dilute. Like I've talked to lots of people at this point now who just really want to know if there's a way around it and want to know when it's possible, what's the risk. So hopefully they feel more confident moving forward and taking the risk, because I think people have still been hesitant so far.
Great. Thanks, Corey. And Lana, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good example of a rule that specifies rules to make it easier for beneficiary-owned businesses, not only to participate in the H-1B process, but to also perform some of the functions that may not be within the specialty occupation. Within the rule, they talk a little bit about, they can direct a business in addition to, say, they're a data architect as, as their primary specialty occupation. This new rule also allows for them to perform some of the direction and the business process in addition to their specialty occupation. So it's a very clear line that they draw.
Yes. And so just to recap that analysis, in the past, we're like, oh my God, it has to be a specialty occupation. If you're a data architect, like, are you allowed to meet investors? Are you allowed to make a pitch deck? Are you allowed to recruit a chief marketing officer? And so this new interpretation says, as long as less than 50% of your time is going to those other types of founder duties, you can qualify as a specialty occupation based on your college degree and your professional experience in your like data science niche or whatever your AI niche is. It's so exciting. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Linda, what's the 18-month possibility? Could you touch on that?
Yeah, so they do have something in there that we're hoping gets wiped out over the comment period once the new regulation goes in, but essentially for beneficiaries with a controlling interest in the H-1B sponsoring company, that H-1B approval validity may only be limited initially to 18 months. So normally you can ask for up to 3 years, but they're trying to put some restrictions on it, which we hope will wash out in the comment period.
Yeah. Oh, and here's a really important question. I'm starting to look through these. Thank you for all of them. This H-1B stuff we're talking about for startup founders, does this only apply to AI startups?
No, that's the beauty of it. I mean, no, and even the AI language says emerging technologies. So you can build arguments, I think, even with the executive order language for those provisions, but here it's completely broad. It doesn't specify an industry.
It's so exciting. So you want to do linguistics, whatever, you want to do sales, you want to do any industry you want to disrupt, this works for you. And even if you don't want to disrupt it, I think we could even use this for small business owners because there's no definition of what a rapidly scaling startup is. It simply is the owner, somebody who is getting the H-1B for themselves. So if you don't want to, I mean, I'm seeing this other thread because the venture market is changing, right? So interest rates are high. There's less dry powder available. There are early stage funding rounds, but like less Series B funding, for example. VCs want to see traction and product market fit before they invest. Founders realize that like with AI tools, you don't have to hire a bunch of people at 400K each to build something. You can use GPT-4, right, to code your product. So the costs of creating a startup are much lower. Founders can get much farther without raising capital. And the more they wait, and the more they develop their product, reach product market fit, get traction, scale, build their user base, create value of the asset of their business, and then they're not selling equity. Selling equity is really at a high cost, and you don't have to as much anymore. So a lot of our clients are like, no, we just might have a privately owned unicorn. We don't necessarily need VCs to bless us. So there's like this whole like indie founder, indie hacker, Peter Levels like writes a lot about this, about all of his like solo projects. So you can build, the tools are getting great, so you can build a lot independently without raising VC money. And to tie this back to one of my lessons from speaking at TechCrunch Disrupt this fall in San Francisco, one of the most common questions I got was, it was actually about O1s, which topic for another webinar, but they're like, Sophie, I never raised money from any VCs. How could I possibly get an O1? I'm like, you never needed VC money to get an O1 to begin with. Like, it was just that they didn't believe you had a real business. So we're like, look, this, you know, high status person decided to give you millions of dollars. So we should be able to use that for an O1, but it's not required. And likewise for an H1B, you don't have to get any venture capital funding. But I think you still need some money. You need some money in your company before you can get an H1B. Linda, any thoughts on minimum amount of revenue or runway in the company bank account to get an H1B?
I mean, you know, a very safe benchmark would be, we're kind of looking at the duration of time we're requesting for that H1B petition. And then look at that prevailing wage. So let's say the prevailing wage is $100,000 and they're working full time. I would like to see $300,000 or close to that in the bank, or an investment, either an investment commitment is even fine.
Yeah. So company does not need to be post revenue to qualify. You can simply have friends and family making loans to the company, and you can have cash in the bank account. And as long as we can fund that person's H1B salary, it's enough money to get an H1B approved. So if you have revenue already, great, but it's not required. And then another important question, like everything we're talking about now already exists. We do not have to wait for any sort of regulation to come through to make this happen. People who own more than 50% of their companies can get their own H1Bs approved now. You do not need a board. You do not need to dilute your equity. The one thing that might come into the language later is this 18-month thing, which is where the government would only approve founder H1Bs for 18 months if you own more than 50% of the company. But all of the startup organizations that I'm working with for lobbying are fighting back on this point, because really you need 3 years to have like the mental time runway to have peace of mind to create something. So we're also going to be sharing about how you can comment on this rule and give them your feedback. And if all people on this webinar did a quick comment to the government saying 18 months is bad, founders need 3 years of approval like an O1 to build something meaningful, then that would really help build the case for why they should not limit it to 18 months at a time. Okay.
And it's even the extension, Sophie. So they snuck that in there too. So
yeah. I mean, it's fine for us because then we'll make money doing all the renewals, but it sucks for our fans.
Yeah, it's not good for the founders. Yeah.
And then one more point on this, because somebody asked about if H1Bs for startup founders need to go through the lottery. So not necessarily. We keep talking about Meta, and if you work there and you've already gotten an H1B, once you've been through the lottery once, if you have a green card, we can keep reusing. If you have an I-140, we can keep reusing your old like lottery acceptance. But you know, maybe if there's time at the end, or another day's webinar, but we get brand new H1Bs for people who've never been through the lottery all the time, because we partner with a CAP exempt organization. So basically, so you're a student, you're running out of your STEM OPT, your lottery thing never got accepted, you can't get an O1 yet, and you want to be a founder and you need an H1B and there's money. You could literally get your first H-1B through a nonprofit for 5 hours a week to teach diverse, underrepresented, first-generation US college students on project-based learning and STEM. That organization is a nonprofit. They get you a 5-hour-a-week H-1B without the lottery, and then your company, your startup can piggyback on a second concurrent full-time H-1B for you to do your normal business stuff additionally. So you do not necessarily need to go through the lottery to get an H-1B to build your startup, which is super exciting as well. Okay. Can we talk a little bit, Lana? Can you give us a brief overview on some of this other H-1B stuff that might come through? And just with the caveat, these are the proposals now. This is not real yet. This is like how they might change the system in the future.
Yeah, so this is in the comment period, and there is a good possibility that some of this may get revised as a result of the comments that are coming in. But in the proposed rule, they are proposing to redefine for the H-1Bs how specialty occupation is defined. So currently, some of the language includes, that the job duties or the position, normally is within the criteria for a specialty occupation. And if part of this, which is a good point of it, they're clarifying, which has been a point of contention in the past when we've had RFEs on specialty occupation. They're clarifying that normally requiring a bachelor's degree does not, in a specific field, does not mean always. And some of the points within this, however, may get some pushback in terms of specialty occupation, because they are redefining the way that specialty occupation is defined, and they're directly linking. They're trying to directly link specific fields with, to the bachelor's degrees that are allowed, and they're limiting that. It seems limiting, at least the way that it's written currently. So that is something that I anticipate there'll be a lot of pushback on.
I think there's going to be a lot of pushback on that too. Yeah. Okay. Overall, they're trying to streamline the whole regulatory framework, but there's parts that might be slower before things get faster, if that makes sense. Okay. Linda, any other comments here?
I mean, I think what I like, I mean, there's good and bad, just like with every regulation, and we hope some of the bad gets flushed out, but they are going to expand eligibility for cap exempt petitioners qualifying. So they're kind of expanding some of the definitions there. So that will help for some institutions.
So that'll mean like more nonprofits and more research institutions can get people H-1Bs without the lottery. Yeah. So that's
and
on that point, for these nonprofits that you can work with for 5 hours and get an H-1B. There's been a couple in the news, but there's one that we've had a lot of success with. So Alex put our email address in the chat window, hello@alcorn.law. And, if you consult with us, we're happy to help you. And this is one of the tools we use. So we're happy to make those introductions if we think that you have a viable case that we can support with.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And now, let's also talk about a little bit, and we're going to have another lottery. We're going to have another webinar on the lottery real soon. We're actually even having another webinar tomorrow. So if you want, that'll be a panel of founders who have moved to Silicon Valley and who are talking about, is it worth it? Should you be here in person? Should you be in the United States? Should you be in San Francisco, or where, where and why? So that'll be really interesting. It's just going to be very, not legal, not technical. That'll be tomorrow. So Alex, if you could please help us by putting that Zoom registration URL for tomorrow's webinar in the chat, please, as well as the one for the H-1B lottery. We're really going to go into this stuff about how they're redoing the lottery in that H-1B webinar. But Linda, what's the overview on what they're thinking of doing for the lottery this coming March?
I mean, I think they're trying to target fraud and abuse is really the objective. And what they're seeing is, they have, when you look at the H-1B lottery, there's 85,000 people that can be selected. And the registrations all go into the same pool, and they're going back and they're saying, hey, this beneficiary registered with 20 different companies. And so that increased their odds of getting selected substantially. So they're trying to level and even out the playing field, basically saying that each beneficiary gets one chance, no matter how many employers are putting them into the ring for
I
the
think there
lottery.
was like one person who got 86 job offers, like 86
Crazy.
companies did their lottery. But you only needed 5 to have like a 99% chance of getting selected. So if this fails and you're gonna game the system this year, all you need is 5 job offers.
Only
But
5.
everybody's so mad about it. So they're trying to just make it an even playing field.
Terrible.
for everybody,
Yeah, I'm kind of mad about it, to be honest. I just feel like people do it in good faith. The people we represent aren't doing that, and I feel like it undermines the process. So I'm kind of glad they're
Yeah.
cracking down on this.
I think it'll make it a lot easier for early stage startups to consider hiring international talent, including students and people in other countries. And because it's so random. And then there's all these people who don't use their H-1Bs after fighting so hard to get them. And that's really annoying because it takes away chances from hardworking people as well. So,
Yes.
Corey, what are your thoughts on all this?
No, that's so true. Just so many people don't actually use the H-1B after selected. So
Yeah.
it's an
They're
important
like,
thing.
well, my spouse can work on my L, so I don't really want my H, but it's nice to have it. And you're like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah, this should be good. I hope they'll get this through in time. The one thing that they're figuring out, oh, you're all like the world's most technically brilliant people on this webinar. So the government has no idea how to create a system where companies sponsor people to get H-1Bs, but the lottery is run one beneficiary at a time, and they don't know how to notify the beneficiaries about them being selected, and then how to allow the beneficiaries to use that selection for one specific company that will sponsor them. Seems like a technical challenge to me, but yeah, USCIS doesn't know how to solve that problem yet. That's one of the things they want comments on. So if you have an idea for how they could build a system that could do that, that would help America. So those comments are available, and you can share them until December 22nd, and I'll see if I can find that link for you all while we're talking. So another question I just wanted to flag from our Q&A panel is just, what's the timeline for the lottery? So like, if you've never been through the lottery, yes, you can do that nonprofit thing, but you probably don't want to lose your chance to be in this year's lottery. Lana, what's the typical timing for the lottery, please?
So generally, the registration process starts in early March and ends sometime in the 3rd week in March. The dates change year to year, but it's that time frame. I think we start our process of collecting information and requesting information from employers in January or by January, so that we have a knowledge of who's looking to sponsor lottery people.
But really, we want you to contact us now. Like, if you know that you have a
Yeah.
company and you know that you have a person, there's no reason to wait, because things get really crazy around here, and we definitely prioritize helping our clients that hired us first, right? And we might run out of time to accept new cases. So really the time is now, and especially with this new lottery thing that makes it more fair. We hope there will be more demand for our services this year, because more people are going to feel like they have a legitimate chance. And I'll put in the chat window now. So Alex has shared already tomorrow's webinar. There's the link for how to submit your comments to the Federal Register. So you can tell them H-1B for owner beneficiaries is good, 18 months is bad, and how to fix the lottery. Tell them that and we'll be good. All right. Oh, this is so exciting. I really hope this happens. And I think a lot of this stuff, this was part of the AI executive order now, right? I think we've switched. So I think the administration basically, all right, so the Trump administration had no idea what they were doing. They were brand new to, like, all the people they hired were basically brand new to Washington and lobbying and regulations and how to change laws. So they took a lot of time to try to figure it out. And they did try to dismantle the system. And then certain law professors in immigration law were like tracking every single change so that when the Biden administration came in, they could literally like try to undo every single change. So they've had this list of stuff they're trying to get through. And I think the AI momentum is a nice like justification for all the stuff they wanted to do anyway. But it's great because they could announce it and now maybe these things are happening. Oh, and Alex just put in the link for our H-1B lottery coming up. So yeah, we'll go into all that a lot more there as well for what to expect in the lottery. But Linda, can you just tell us about what this whole visa stamping thing would be if it ever happens?
I mean, we're supposed to see phase 1 rollout for H-1B extensions where you can apply for your H-1B visa stamp renewal in the US. It's like an in-country application if you have a prior H-1B visa stamp. So you don't have to depart the US, go to your home country, apply at the US Embassy or consulate. So that's something that they're trying to expand that program to Fs and Js and other people in the AI and emerging technologies fields. Which we know our clients would love because the wait time for visa stamping has been
Nobody
outrageous.
wants to take a separate trip halfway around the world to leave the United States and their families to wonder if they're going to be able to get back in and wait some indeterminate time for maybe their passport to be returned to them. It's an awful system.
Yeah, it is.
Canada doesn't do that. They can just like mail them in or something. Like, yeah, Canadians who need their visas or US people who need Canadian visas, like whatever the thing is, other countries have figured this out. This is not rocket science.
No,
But
they can charge fees. I mean, that's the other thing is they
but
can make
people
it.
would gladly pay. If you think of the opportunity cost of
I'm
going
sure the fee might be
India?
cheap. Yeah, than a plane ticket to India. So.
Yeah,
just leaving your job and your family and your kids and then like, yeah, no, it's awful. It's awful. I think people would pay like $10,000 for this. I mean, I don't think they're going to charge that much, but they were yeah, so they used all these like economic metrics to judge the costs of the current system and the effect of all these modernization changes for their like econometrics analysis of like how much money would all these proposed regulations cost or save, and they're like really off the mark for reality check. But anyway, it's okay. It would be so amazing. So hopefully we'll see the H and the L pilot program soon, and then hopefully they'll include O's and F's and J's, which would just be really incredible. They used to have this before 9/11, but then because of the biometrics requirements, they ended the system, and they should really bring it back. Okay. Okay. And what is this all about, Lana? The streamlining that they're thinking about doing?
So Department of State, which oversees consular, visa, and green card processing, they're trying to streamline requests within 90 days. So the order directs Department of Homeland Security, which oversees this process, to streamline the visa and green card application and interview process with expertise in AI or other critical emerging technologies. They want to streamline these interviews outside in consular
a little bit. We've had some EB-1As for AI people that get approved in like a couple days, and then a few people have been really lucky and they've had their I-485s approved in like 90 days, which is completely insane. But it seems like somebody is watching some of these. But we don't have any like special insight or access. And not all of our AI founders get that. So
I think, yeah, some field offices are also more organized than others, which could be the result for some quick green card approvals at least.
Yeah. And then in San Jose, there's so many applications. They all got like redistributed around the country because they couldn't deal with all the.
They sent a lot of them to Fresno.
Okay. Let's see. J1s. They're trying to make J1s better. I don't know how many people on this webinar this is going to affect, but let's say you're here on a J1 now because you're like a Fulbright scholar and you're doing research, or you're on like a postdoc at Berkeley, or whatever. If you have a J1 now, the most important thing is to figure out if you're subject to 212E, the 2-year foreign residence requirement. If you have a Fulbright, there's almost no way to waive it unless there's some like extreme family health crisis. Other people can get waivers usually, but it takes a while. If you can't get a waiver, usually an O1 is best, but you'll still have to consular process. But anyway, they're going to try to make it better so that the US government has more discretion to limit the 212E 2-year foreign residence requirement, and we have less deference to other countries to ask for their exchange visitors to be returned back to them. So that'll be a national security improvement. This would also be super cool. And, you know, immigration law is so weird. Like, we have, you know, nurses can get special visas because everybody's known that we haven't had enough nurses for like the past 40 years in this country. Like, there's something for sheep herders. There's something for like 50 special education teachers a year. There's stuff for fashion models. So they're trying to, like, this is one of the things that might happen. And I think it would take a second Biden administration to really see this through, but they might just put AI and emerging technologies on a list for EB2 where there's no perm and you don't need a national interest waiver and you can literally just like file your I-140. So at the same time, we still have EB2 backlogs now for like the whole world. So it's not necessarily a panacea. But there's some speculation amongst speculators that there might even be a new adjustment of status regulation coming soon, which could make things better for aging out kids, but it could also maybe use national security arguments to reclaim a lot of unused visa numbers to make more people current on the visa bulletin. So that would be very, very, very exciting if we do that. Yeah, and then overall, there's just a lot of instruction to multiple agencies. You know, they're trying to staff all of the projects. They're getting funding from the CHIPS and Science Act, semiconductors, electric battery manufacturing plants. Like, there's such a talent shortage. They're having multiple agencies and departments working on new opportunities to attract and retain the world's brilliant people. But I would say this is the overall thing, like takeaways, H-1Bs for founders with more than 50% of the company, even with no 3-member boards. That's good. That's now, that's today. We can help you file that in like 3 weeks if you want us to super expedite. All this other stuff about like stateside visa stamping and speeding up of AI cases, that's all speculative still, but we do anticipate more of those notices coming in the coming months. All right, so now we have a few more minutes, and here's our QR code where you can sign up for a consultation, and you can get a link to my book, Ask Sophie, The Founder's Guide to Visas and Green Cards, our contact information, but we are absolutely here to help you accomplish all of your immigration goals. And let's see, we have 33 open questions. Okay, so some of these I'll do rapid fire. Some of these I will cold call on my brilliant colleagues, put them on the spot. Okay, can solo founders start a company and get an H-1B? Yes, the answer is yes. We might have requirements to make you hire somebody to help you with HR, but we can walk you through all of that. Okay. Does a newly founded company have the right to sponsor an H-1B for its founder? Yes. Would there be a minimum revenue or income requirement? Yes. There's a prevailing wage. We have to show that there's money available to pay the salary. As Linda mentioned, it's good to have, you know, we're requesting 1 to 3 years of H-1B status. So having enough money or a plan to be able to pay the prevailing wage salary for that time period would kind of be the minimum. But we've had all sorts of financial arrangements in the companies for our clients that have worked for this, so we can help with that. Can solo founders self-fund and pay themselves for an H-1B? I mean, Okay, Linda, I'm gonna maybe ask for your insight on this. My statement would be if there's one person who's the owner and they make a loan to the company and the company is paying their legal fees and their salary, that could be an issue. However, if maybe a few people are funding the company, maybe the funds are fungible, maybe there's another way to argue this. We might want to talk to your corporate lawyer about what structure they're imagining for that. But the main rule, right, is like H-1B holders can't be required to pay their H-1B fees personally, right?
Yeah, it's a Department of Labor rule. So you want to have that distance between, you as an individual and have it really come from the company rather than you as an individual. So it could be as simple as making sure it comes from the company's checkbook. But yeah, that is a requirement that we want to be cautious about.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I tried to be clear as we went through on what's happening and what is speculative. Oh, this is a really important one. Corey and I are chatting with a bunch of IP attorneys about this right now. Can I work for Meta as a product manager on H-1B and work as a CEO on my own startup on the new H-1B? From an immigration perspective, yes, we can get you can maintain your current full-time H-1B to work in a big tech company, and we could theoretically get an H-1B for part-time to work on your startup approved. It works from an immigration standpoint if the new company is set up properly, but it raises issues of employment law and intellectual property law. And the main issue is when some of these big tech companies, they work on so many things, they could have a claim to your intellectual property at your startup if you're still working there. So best practice would be completely quit and then start the company and do your second H-1B for your new startup. But a lot of people want to like dabble and test the market. So, reach out to us after your consultation and we can potentially introduce you to some IP attorneys who could help take a look at whatever signing documents you had when you got hired, like a PIIA or a CIIA, which basically say that your employer owns all your IP that you create on work time or with work property. So you want to be really, really careful about that, because the worst would be if you create some $1 billion thing and then they sue you and they own the whole thing. So want to be careful.
Yeah, go back and read those.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We have time for a few more. Some of the salaries for founders end up being 200K or higher in New York City with salary benchmark data. How to get around that when we're a founder? Well, look, H-1Bs don't have to be for full-time work. We can get an H-1B for a part-time job, or we can have a range of hours, and then you can ramp up later when there's more revenue or something. So we also, look at the job duties and job descriptions provided by the companies to us, and we evaluate a variety of job codes, and that's part of our services that we offer for doing an H-1B. So we'll help you figure out if maybe there's cheaper ways to do it. And also, if there are any trade-offs, like sometimes a cheaper category like computer programmers, got completely derailed by the Trump administration because they're like, wow, this is bad and you can't be a computer programmer on H-1B anymore. So there's all sorts of stuff, like that's part of our job as your lawyers, is to figure that out for you. All right. Oh, classic question. I'm on H-1B. Am I allowed to go and pitch and raise funds? So in immigration law, the definition of work is that you're performing services in the hope of future remuneration. There isn't clear guidelines on this. The most we can do is take an analogy from B1 visitor status, which you're not work authorized for, but you are allowed to negotiate personal contracts, have business meetings, do research, attend educational events. So I think if you're not holding yourself out as a CEO, and there's no company and there's no exchange of money, I would say you can do whatever research you want, but you do want to be careful. If I'm working outside on my US-based startup and I'm able to petition for an H-1B as a founder, yes, you are. And if you contact us to evaluate you for that, we will also compare it to other non-immigrant visa options like an O1 visa or an E2 visa or an L1 visa. And a lot depends on the structure of your companies, what stage you're at, if you have team members, but we'll evaluate all of that for you. Codify means when something becomes code, legal code, law. So it's like when it's, I guess your analogy in software would be like if the code is committed to the repository or something, it's like, has the law been modified? Okay. Wow, so many meta examples. That just became our fill-in big tech company of the day. Yeah, fun fact, one beneficiary was registered 83 times. Yeah, it's completely insane. Okay, couple more. Not going to get to all of these, but please do contact us because we're happy to set up individual one-on-one consultations and answer all your questions and more. How is it that people shift from a nonprofit to a for-profit industry on a cap exempt H-1B? You have to maintain both at the same time to stay in status. If you want to get out of the nonprofit world, you have to go through the H-1B lottery, or you have to get a green card or another type of visa. Other than that, you have to keep your nonprofit or research H-1B active the whole time. If I've submitted by my employer for the H-1B, which uses Fragment, can Alcorn also submit it for me? Thank you so much for thinking of us. We would love to help you, but the company gets to choose their immigration lawyer. So if you would like your company to use Alcorn, please let us know. We would be happy to support your company in their H-1B filings. Awesome. And thank you so much, Rob, for your comment. Great stuff today. Thanks so much for sharing these updates and breaking them down. Rob Adams, Chai and Coaching, thank you for being here today. He helps international students. He helps with accent reduction. He has a great YouTube channel, Chai and something, Chat and Chai. Sorry, Rob, you can put it in the chat in the Q&A panel and we'll share it, but thank you for being here. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending and for all your amazing questions. We really appreciate you joining us today. Hope to see you tomorrow for our fluffy webinar on Is Silicon Valley Worth It? And how to make the most of it when you get here. So please join us. A bunch of my friends from Founders Network will be chatting with me about the pros and cons of living here and the cost of living and all of that. And just thank you so much for keeping in touch. And we'd love to help you with your founder H-1B, you know, part-time, full-time, transfers, concurrent, lottery, cap exempt, all of that. But just keep in touch and we'll figure out the best thing for you. And you don't have to worry about a lot of the details because we'll do it for you. So thank you so much, Linda, Corey, Lana, Alex, for being here with me today. Amazing doing this webinar for you. Thank you for sharing all of your expert insights.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day.